There is a version of you sitting somewhere on the other side of whatever just broke, and that version is not weaker than the one standing here right now, no matter how convincingly the current pain argues otherwise. Most people treat collapse as proof that something has gone permanently wrong with them, as though a shattered plan or a shattered identity means the entire story is finished before it was ever meant to end. Marcus Aurelius, a man who buried children, survived plagues, and ruled an empire under siege from every direction at once for nearly 2 decades, never once treated collapse that way. And he had considerably more reason than most people ever will to view his own life as a finished story. We are not talking about bouncing back today. Bouncing back implies returning to exactly what you were before the break occurred, restoring an old shape as though nothing had changed. And that is not what this is. We are talking about reconstruction on entirely new terms, using the wreckage itself as material rather than treating it as pure loss. Here is the sentence that should sit uncomfortably with you for a moment, long enough to actually mean something. The obstacle in front of you right now is not blocking the path. It is the path itself. Aurelius wrote that down for himself, privately, in a series of notes he never intended anyone else to read. Notes that eventually became one of the most enduring texts on human endurance ever produced. He was not performing wisdom for an audience. He was surviving, using it, in real time, with no guarantee it would work. So ask yourself honestly what you have been treating as an ending that was actually only ever a beginning, wearing an unfamiliar and unwelcome shape. One you did not choose, and would not have chosen given any real say in the matter. In the next few minutes, we walk through exactly how a mind trained in Stoic discipline takes total collapse and turns it into raw material for something sturdier than what existed before the break ever happened. Lesson 1. The myth of the permanent break. When something in your life shatters, whether a relationship, a career, an identity you spent years quietly building, the mind rushes immediately toward a single, overwhelming conclusion. This is permanent damage. This changed everything forever, and nothing will ever feel steady again. Aurelius rejected this framing entirely, not because he was in denial about pain or pretending hardship did not genuinely hurt, but because he understood something most people never take the time to examine closely while they're in the middle of it. A break reveals structure. It does not erase it. When a bone breaks and heals correctly, the site of the break often becomes the strongest part of the entire structure afterward, not the weakest. Because the body does not simply rebuild the old bone exactly as it was. It builds something denser, specifically at the point of failure, reinforcing exactly where the weakness was originally exposed. Nobody, in the middle of the break itself, believes this process is happening to them. That disbelief is exactly why the underlying principle matters more in this moment than at almost any other. Because grief and shock have a way of convincing you that the current unbearable feeling is an accurate, permanent forecast rather than a temporary weather system that is, however slowly, still passing through. Notice how certain you feel right now that things will always feel this heavy, permanently, without relief on any horizon. And notice that this exact certainty has likely visited you before, at some other low point earlier in your life, and it was wrong every single time it showed up. That pattern is not naive optimism dressed up as philosophy. It is simply an honest accounting of your own track record. 1. Most people never bother to actually check before believing their current despair is somehow more accurate or more permanent than every previous despair that eventually lifted, regardless. Think back to the last time something felt like the end of everything, a year ago, 5 years ago, further back than that. You are still here, still capable of watching this video, still capable of thinking clearly enough to consider what comes next, which is itself quiet evidence against the permanence your mind is currently insisting on. The break you are living through right now is not asking you to pretend it doesn't hurt. It is asking you to stop assuming the hurt is the final chapter, rather than an early one. Lesson 2. Radical acceptance of what has already happened. This is the part of Stoic philosophy that gets misunderstood constantly. So let me be direct about it before moving any further. Acceptance does not mean approval. It does not mean you are glad this happened, or that the pain suddenly stops mattering the moment you accept it happened at all. It means you stop spending finite energy fighting a fact that has already occurred and cannot be unoccurred, because that fight, however justified it feels in the moment, produces absolutely nothing except exhaustion layered on top of the original pain. Aurelius called this working with fate rather than against it, and he was ruthless about applying the principle to himself, even in the middle of losing people he genuinely loved. The thing that has already happened is no longer inside your control, no matter how many times your mind returns to it looking for a different outcome buried somewhere in the details. What remains inside your control is entirely how you respond to it, starting from this exact moment forward and not 1 second before. Most people burn enormous amounts of energy relitigating the past privately in their own head, replaying what should have happened instead, building elaborate alternate timelines where the break never occurred in the first place, or occurred differently, or occurred to someone else entirely. That energy, however understandable and however human, is being spent entirely on the one variable that cannot be changed by any amount of mental effort, no matter how sophisticated the argument, or how many times it gets rehearsed. The moment you redirect that same finite energy toward the only variable that remains genuinely yours, which is the very next decision you make, something shifts that has nothing to do with feeling better right away, and everything to do with actually moving forward, regardless of how you feel. Acceptance is not surrender. Surrender stops moving entirely and calls the stopping piece. Acceptance simply stops fighting the wrong opponent, so that all remaining strength can be aimed instead at the one opponent that can actually be defeated with effort. Picture the exact amount of mental energy spent today imagining how things could have gone differently, and picture that same energy spent instead on a single concrete task that moves the rebuild forward. The math rarely favors the version spent on the unchangeable past. Lesson 3. Discipline instead of motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are notoriously unreliable exactly when you need them most, which tends to be in the immediate aftermath of something painful enough to break you in the first place. Aurelius never wrote about waiting to feel inspired before acting, and he certainly never had the luxury of waiting for inspiration while running an empire through war and plague simultaneously. He wrote instead about the discipline of small, repeated actions performed specifically because they were the correct next step, regardless of whether any emotional reward accompanied them that day. Rebuilding does not happen through a single dramatic turning point captured neatly in a highlight reel, the kind of moment stories like to compress into a single scene. It happens through unglamorous repetition, the same small action chosen again the next day and the day after that, long after any initial burst of resolve has worn off completely and quietly stopped showing up on schedule. This is where most people abandon the process, not because the underlying plan was wrong, but because they were waiting for motivation to return before continuing. And motivation, being a feeling rather than a decision, comes and goes according to its own unreliable schedule that answers to nothing and nobody. Discipline does not wait for the feeling to arrive first. It performs the action anyway, whether the feeling shows up to support it or not, and over enough repetitions, day after unremarkable day, something durable gets built that never actually depended on emotional weather in the first place. Consider the smallest possible version of the next right action available to you today, not the grand version, not the version that requires you to feel fully ready before even attempting it. The version so small it seems almost embarrassing to count as progress at all. The smallest version, performed consistently across many ordinary days that feel like nothing is happening, is what actually rebuilds structure over time. Grand gestures performed once, however impressive they look from the outside, rarely do the same work. A single 10-minute walk taken today, chosen deliberately instead of skipped because you don't feel like it, matters more to the actual rebuild than an ambitious plan drafted with great enthusiasm and abandoned within a week, once the enthusiasm inevitably fades. Lesson 4. Using the wreckage as material. Once acceptance has taken hold, and discipline has replaced the wait for motivation, something practical becomes possible that was never available in the middle of the initial collapse itself. The specific thing that broke you contains information nothing else in your life could have possibly given you access to. This is the part most people skip once they start feeling slightly better, mistaking early relief for completed reconstruction, and it is exactly the part that determines whether the new structure actually lasts or quietly reverts to the old one, under the first real pressure that comes along to test it, often without you even noticing the reversal until it has already happened. Everything covered today comes down to a single Stoic principle that Aurelius returned to constantly across an entire lifetime of genuine, well-documented hardship. The obstacle is the way, not the thing standing between you and the way. What broke you is not a verdict on what you are ultimately capable of becoming, no matter how final it currently feels while you're still standing in the middle of it. It is raw material, sitting there right now whether you use it or not, waiting for discipline instead of motivation to start shaping it into something sturdier than what existed before it broke apart. Acceptance is not defeat, no matter how much it can initially feel that way from the inside. It simply redirects your remaining energy toward the only variable that was ever actually yours to control in the first place, which is the next action, chosen deliberately. Regardless of whether it feels rewarding in the exact moment it gets taken, the information hidden inside the wreckage is not there to comfort you or make the pain retroactively worthwhile. It is there because it is genuinely useful, and using it is the only way the wreckage stops being pure loss and starts becoming something closer to material. And the structure you are building now was never meant to be an exact replica of what came before. It was always meant to hold weight the previous version could not, which is the entire reason this process matters at all, beyond simple survival. This channel exists to keep handing you the real mechanics behind this kind of endurance, past the shallow, recycled encouragement that never actually explains how reconstruction works underneath the surface, where it actually counts, in the unglamorous daily details. If today's video gave you something worth carrying forward into whatever you're currently rebuilding, whatever shape it happens to be taking right now, do 3 things right now before you move on with your day. Like this video, so more people standing in the middle of their own collapse right now, on what might be the worst day they've had in months, have a real chance to find it exactly when they need it most. Share it with someone you know who is currently convinced their particular break is permanent, unfixable, the end of whatever story they thought they were living, because it almost certainly is not, no matter how loudly it currently insists otherwise. Subscribe to this channel right now, because the next video goes even deeper into exactly how Stoic discipline turns raw hardship into structure built to actually last. Drop this in the comments before you go, so it stays with you on the days you need it most. I work with what happened, not against it. I build with discipline, not motivation. This was never meant to be entertainment you consume once and forget on your way to something else. It was meant to be a door you can return to every single time life breaks something again, because it will, more than once, and you will still know exactly how to rebuild when it does. I will see you in the next one.